Snipers, you have to see what's happening in the Bitcoin price this Friday. As we wrap up the week, Bitcoin has decided not to test its 200-day moving average, instead continuing to see strength towards our price target of 24,300, exactly as we've been predicting here on the Snipers channel. We knew if Bitcoin were to break above 17,200, the next level of resistance would only come at 25,000 US dollars. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. If we're looking at the charts, what you'll notice is we have finally broken above the FTX local high. This is where FTX declared itself bankrupt, and we have now breached that high, which means that the doors open for Bitcoin to test our next level of major resistance here at 24,300. We are going to be expecting a pushback here at 24,300, not just because it's a major volume resistance, but if you look at the weekly chart, what you'll notice is we have confluence here with the 200-week moving average about to converge with this 50-week moving average. This is going to be a very tough spot for Bitcoin to breach above. But what's very interesting about what's happening right now is that the S&P 500 has been above its 200-week moving average throughout the start of this year and even in the latter part of 2022, meaning that if Bitcoin gets above its 200-week moving average, and that means it gets even further above 25,000, potentially towards 30,000, it wouldn't necessarily be too odd for that to happen. And one thing we have to look at is Bitcoin's evaluation against the S&P 500, which will pull up because this is extremely important right now. Bitcoin against the SPY is also heading towards this 200-week moving average. Notice how Bitcoin against the SPY has never in the history of its price action broken below the 200-week moving average with any full body weekly candles. We've never come below the 200-week moving average. This has been the first time that we have been below this 200-week moving average. Now we are slowly approaching this area of resistance, and it looks like Bitcoin still has some room to go to reach that price target of 24,300, in which if we do get to 24,300, the reason I would expect a slowdown is because, remember, Snipers, we do still have a CME gap here on the Bitcoin CME futures charts. What you'll notice here is if we were to pull up BTC1 exclamation mark, you'll see this massive gap here, not just on the daily chart, but also on the weekly chart. These gaps tend to eventually get filled, especially if they're on the weekly chart. But you can even see here, we have a gap up top that hasn't been filled. So what if we come up, fill the gap up top at 29,000 before we come down later down the road to fill this gap that just formed here at 19,995. These are potential scenarios that are on the table. We've been talking about this here on the Snipers channel because remember, the markets always do the opposite of what we expect. Everyone said that after the FTX crash, that's it, Bitcoin, it's going down to 10,000, it's over for Bitcoin. And then what happens? Bitcoin breaks above the FTX market local high where we saw that crash begin. And so what we're seeing right now is the market's doing the exact opposite of what everyone expects. And that's exactly why, as soon as we broke above 17,200, for those that have been tuned into the #1 cryptocurrency technical analysis channel on the internet here on the Snipers channel, you knew that we were ready to potentially see 24,300. So exactly as we predicted, this is working out. And if we look at the 6-hour chart, I will say this for the short-term time frames, it still looks like there's a lot of momentum here for Bitcoin with this strong body on the 6-hour chart, this institutional time frame. We have a lot of institutional volume, but wow, look at this. Notice this, Snipers. This is the first time that we're seeing institutional sell pressure equate to the amount of buy pressure that has taken up this move to the upside for Bitcoin. Notice how we have this sell pressure that just came in. This is of note. This is extremely important because this actually is showing us that things are slowing down potentially. There is momentum being lost here, and I'm not surprised because we're heading towards the resistance of this range. So exactly as we've been predicting, 24,300 is where we've been expecting to see this price action head towards, and that's exactly what we're seeing there. And we're seeing it a lot faster than expected. The DXY closed the week off quite bearish. The S&P 500 closed the week off strong. You can see by the end of the market closing today, we saw the S&P 500 recover a ton of losses and move up back above the 200-day moving average. And so that's why I told you guys yesterday we were hanging on to that 50-day moving average. We had not yet lost that 50-day moving average. And so the S&P 500 is certainly still facing a major resistance level. We have not yet broke this level. And then of course, if we look at the DXY, it looks like it's ready for another push to the upside. it's been quite bearish over the last 7 months now. And so I think it would be safe to assume that the DXY needs to come up and at least form a lower high or potentially a higher high. Because if you look at the DXY on the charts, it really looks like that would be the most appropriate move here, with the DXY showing all of this bearish price action after this parabolic run up that we saw in the earlier part of 2022. Now we're seeing the DXY at these oversold levels, in my opinion. And so at some point or another, I am expecting that push to the upside. This could actually reverse what we're seeing with upside in the equity markets and the cryptocurrency market. And so this is also going to be on our radar, but that's it. It's the weekend. The weekend has started. And so we don't need to really follow traditional markets until Monday. You can see the total market cap making a very nice bold move, holding above this 200-day moving average as support. Very good to see that. The Ethereum to Bitcoin chart was actually up today for a little bit, but it's still showing some weakness. We still want to monitor Bitcoin dominance, because you can see it is continuing to go up, but we want Bitcoin dominance to go up. As a matter of fact, we want it to go all the way up to this 200-week moving average before we can assume that the bottom is already in. And so as soon as that Bitcoin dominance chart gets to that 200-week moving average, we can potentially assume that the bottom is in. The VIX came down today, you can see back below 20, and so that's something to monitor, meaning that there could still be some potential volatility on the table here. But man, across the board, equity markets, a very solid day. Coinbase up over 10% for the day to close off the week. Very strong in the cryptocurrency sector when it comes to equity markets. I think that that's very good to see coming into the weekend. It looks like a lot of people would ask me, Naeem, what is the bias coming into the weekend? At this point, the bias is still bullish. And I say that because the S&P 500 had a very strong close to Friday. We're seeing the DXY continuing to sell off. We aren't seeing any upside just yet. And then, of course, Bitcoin still has some room to the upside towards that major resistance of 24,300. So we still have potential upside left through this week, and especially with that extremely bullish 6-hour candle close. Now, do I still expect Bitcoin to come back down to test that 200-day moving average, fill the CME gap below 20,000? Yes, at some point or another, I do expect that to happen. But remember, there's also a CME gap at 29,000 US dollars. So what if we get to 29,000 US dollars and then we come back down to fill the CME gap below 20,000 US dollars? That would actually be what nobody would expect, and that's why the markets always tend to do the opposite of what everyone expects. So let's see what happens with that, snipers. But very strong day for Bitcoin, inside of the range still here, with a support of 17,200 and a resistance of 24,300. This has been the range that we've been playing in here over the last few days, and it's not a surprise that as we got above 17,200, we saw a straight shot up above 21,000 US dollars. This is the range that Bitcoin is in. And until we can get above 24,300, that's when we can start talking about a potential reversal of this bear market into a bull market, because that would be the final confirmation that we would look for those that would still want to be patient in entering into positions. But at this point, I would say when it comes to long positions, I do not see a proper risk to reward just yet, because we're heading towards a major resistance. And of course, we also know that we have that 200-week moving average and that 50-week moving average to face. So let's continue to monitor that, snipers. But this is certainly not a surprise for those that have been tuned into the channel. We've been expecting Bitcoin to reach the $24,300 level ever since we broke above 17,200. So this is all normal garden variety market behavior. It's the range that we're playing in. And so it's exciting to see the bulls come in and bring Bitcoin in for a very strong close on a Friday. I can't wait to see what happens here during the weekend, where the markets are the most manipulated, especially with a bullish bias. It's going to be a very interesting weekend, to say the least. Remember, snipers, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel and comment below your favorite part, and I will see you guys next time. Snipers.